Hi, everybody. I'm Eliza Sherman. I'm the CEO of Ellementa and the author of Cannabis and CBD for Health and Wellness, co-written with Dr. Junella Chin. If you've attended these sessions before, you know that Ellementa began as an educational forum for women about cannabis as a medicinal plant. We have since expanded into CBD and just plant medicine in general and wellness in general. So I'm excited to have Joy Rains today here. She is going to talk to us about meditation. We have had a few sessions so far about meditation, and it's amazing to hear the different takes that the practitioners have who we bring here. Her book is called, and I'm asking you now, Joy, this is the cue, hold it up. Her book is called Meditation, Illuminated, Simple Ways to Manage Your Busy Mind. Thank you. So if you're like me, you're experiencing all this compounded stress, not just the stress of every day. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm in my 50s, I've got 3 kids, 2 teens and a toddler. There's been a lot going on here. And then a pandemic. Who knows who will be watching this and when in the future? But if you're watching this live, we're all in this boat together. And one of the major things that's happening, even if our lives have not been directly touched right now by COVID-19, it's putting a layer of fear in and infusing everything with just that much more stress. So I do think this is a critical time to be speaking with someone like Joy about a topic like meditation. So Joy, welcome.
Thank you.
And I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Okay. Well, I do talk about this in my book, and I will say thank you for having me here, first of all. I've had a busy mind since I was a little girl. I used to worry all the time. When I was, I don't know, about 5 or 6, my father used to call me Miss What If, because I'd say, what if the wave, washes me away? What if we get stuck on top of the roller coaster? I worried about everything. And I guess it was by the time I got to my mid-20s, I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I wanted healthy ways to deal with my worries. So I had heard about meditation. Now, this was probably the mid-'80s, so it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So I just did a deep dive into studying meditation. And it was very mysterious then. It was very sort of woo-woo and out there. But I just stuck with it, went to workshops, read books, went to lectures. And I found that, hey, it did help me manage all this stress. So.
Well, you have several resources, and I'm going to just kick it right off with some of these resources. Your book is one, but you also have a podcast. I want to make sure everyone listening today and who watches the video knows that they can go to that. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, well, my podcast is called Mindful 180, and it's on most of the apps. You can find it. You can also listen to it on my website, joyrains.com. The reason I started the podcast was, and this is also the reason I wrote the book, because it took me so long to figure out how to meditate and what it was about. I wanted to make it simple for people. So I like to give people very simple instructions and almost a linear path to follow, although meditation is anything but linear. So the podcast and the book is really aimed at people who are newer to meditation or people who'd like a review or a refresher. The podcast has short episodes, most of which have guided meditations.
Excellent. And so I wanted to let everyone know a little bit later in the program, we will go through a guided meditation with Joy, something brief, but, cozy up and make sure you're comfortable. I'm taking a cue from Erica Grafe, who helps often with these webinars, and she always says, stay hydrated.
I'll join you.
Let's dive right into the topic then of meditation. I have to say that I personally have, over the years, resisted meditating. It did seem just strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I learned about it, I actually got to meditation through the idea of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between meditation versus mindfulness?
Yes, absolutely. And I think there is some confusion about the two. So, mindfulness is the experience of being in the present moment rather than being caught up in thoughts about the past or thoughts about the future, rather than being caught up in your judgments. It's the mindset of just being in the here and now, almost as if you're witnessing what's happening with a neutral awareness.
Mm.
Meditation, on the other hand, is a practice. And it's a practice to teach you to become mindful. Now, I just want to put a little asterisk here and say that there's probably hundreds of different ways to meditate and many different explanations of meditation. The way I teach it and explain it is a synthesis of Eastern and Western and all different stuff rolled together. And I think I do present it in one of the more commonly thought of ways, which is meditation as a practice of developing your awareness by bringing your attention to a neutral focal point. When you're focused on something neutral, that's when you're being mindful. You're not caught up in all the stuff of the mind. Your mind is resting in neutral. So meditation trains you to become mindful. And I will say here that the brain has neural pathways, and you can actually train your brain to become mindful. I taught my mother how to meditate when she was 80 years old.
Wow.
She's 93 now.
Wow.
Still meditating. And I will say the meditation practice she does has been a tremendous support during this pandemic.
I can see how it would be. And I was going to mention, when you were saying there's so many ways to meditate, the way I ended up getting to meditation and realizing, whoa, wow, that's meditation, is trying to get a steady yoga practice going. And I use an app on my phone called Down Dog, which is really lovely because you can customize based on different features you would like in your yoga practice. And I've been expanding the end of my yoga practice, which is Shavasana or corpse pose. And I am finding that to be much more appealing to me now, or much more nourishing and effective for me now. And then it occurred to me that is such a meditative state.
Yes.
And so I'm now at 15 minutes, which for me is a lot to be laying still. And it's almost like, I want to say something addictive, but that's sort of the wrong kind of word, but it's attractive. It's super attractive to me. And I keep wanting to expand and extend that. So that's how I got to the idea of meditation as being something I could accomplish. But what are some of the challenges that people face as they try to meditate for the first time? Like, what have you observed in early meditators in terms of kind of common pitfalls, if you will? I mean, maybe there's no mistakes because that's judgment. But what are some things that they experience that's okay, but that they learn to shift from? Did I say that in a way that works?
Totally. Well, one of the challenges is that people have challenges managing their minds. They're not used to doing that. And I think this was your experience coming to meditation through yoga. So it's much easier to tell the body to do something the body's a gross form than to tell the subtle form of the mind to do something, right? You'll tell your body to slow down and your body will likely listen. But if you tell your mind to slow down, your mind may not listen. So for people who are just not used to managing the mind and really don't want to sit down and try to do that, coming in through the body the way you did is a great way to do it. People can also do a walking meditation where they notice, I love walking meditation. Just notice the soles of your feet as they touch the ground as you walk. And anytime your mind wanders, you bring it back to the soles of your feet again and again and again. So this is another challenge. People say, my mind doesn't stop. And meditation isn't a practice of stopping what's going on in your mind. It's a practice of noticing it and coming back to neutral again and again and again, even if it's every second or two. So I call this object of neutral awareness an anchor, and I'll hold up a picture because people sometimes think I say anger.
Oh, no, I heard anchor. I heard anchor, but I love the visual. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. And the anchor is something neutral you rest your awareness on, such as your breath moving in and out of your body. I like to meditate with a smooth stone, holding it in my hand, noticing its characteristics, its coolness, its warmth, its shape, its texture. So you're speaking about challenges or asking about challenges. So a huge challenge is my mind is too busy. I can't meditate. But if you approach meditation as if it's a practice of noticing when your attention goes off and running in your thoughts and bringing it back to neutral over and over and over, then you realize, hey, I can do this. So it becomes much more manageable.
Very interesting that you mentioned the stone, because that reminds me of something back from the 70s, worry beads.
Yeah.
Like a little bracelet of smooth stone beads. And that in and of itself was encouraging, without ever mentioning meditation, was encouraging you to contemplate on the beads.
Yes.
And feel them in your hands.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a matter of shifting your attention and learning to direct your attention. Now, when I was a kid, my dad wanted to learn how to ski. So those first few times out on the slopes, my skis just went in these crazy directions. And it's the same with the mind. The mind just goes off and running where it wants to go. There's an old story that I really love. Somebody's riding a wild horse and a fellow stops him and says, "Where are you going?" And the rider says, "Don't ask me, ask the horse." So this is the mind. The mind is like a wild horse, but you can actually train it through meditation by teaching your mind to come back to your focal point again and again and again. And you asked about the challenges. I would say try meditating for 2 or 3 minutes.
Because people say, I just don't have time. I just don't have time. If I were to stop, all these things won't get done. And they're thinking meditation, you have to sit for an hour or 2. It doesn't have to be that way.
That's right. That's right. I say start small, do it for 2 minutes, do it for 3 minutes. And like you, now you're doing this 15-minute practice, which is much more accessible for you now that you're used to it. So
it started off as 3 minutes. It started on the Shavasana portion. So the yoga is 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then Shavasana 3. But now it's up to 15.
Yeah. So you've expanded it because your mind has gotten used to this practice. And you're finding that you like it. But, I will say not everybody likes meditation, or not every time somebody sits for meditation. Is it a enjoyable experience. It can be boring and tedious. And
Mm.
that's okay. I mean, it's not necessarily supposed to be this great, fun thing to do. Again, it's a training, right?
Yeah. Practice can be boring. Practice can be annoying in a sense. But as you practice and improve your practice, then you reap benefits from it.
Yes.
So, yeah, could you talk a little bit then about benefits, direct benefits that people may experience through meditation?
Yes. Well, if you look it up in the scientific journal, you'll even find all these physiological benefits,
Mm.
changes in the brain that account for reduced stress and increased focus and enhanced positive emotion. But, just bringing it down to everyday life, a very big benefit is that people become less reactive. It
Mm.
enables you to witness things from a neutral standpoint rather than from this reactive, judgmental standpoint. Because one of the things you're practicing in meditation is to release judgments and become more accepting of the wanderings of the mind. So then, when you apply that to everyday life, people often find they become less judgmental, they become more accepting. In terms of stress, people become aware of stories they might be spinning out that cause stress, like especially in the pandemic.
Mm.
And this could happen no matter what difficult situation is going on. But somebody might find themselves watching the news and find their mind start spinning into stories. What if I get sick? What if I lose my job? What if I can't pay my rent? And well, those things could be a reality. They're not happening now, yet the person reacts to them as if they're happening now and gets into a full-blown stress response. So when you develop your awareness in meditation, you can take a look at your thoughts and say, is this true? Am I in the here and now with what's happening, or am I living into an imagined stressful future outcome? And if so, let me let go of that.
So if it is not imaginary, if those stories that were in your head end up playing out, or if those things are playing out, we have people who are getting sick, or loved ones, or even neighbors or friends who are getting sick. We have people who have lost their jobs, who have lost any. For me, my job was my business, but the business has lost a lot of viable income because people are afraid to spend, particularly on marketing. So there is that reality. How then, if you're in the throes of stressful situations,
Yes.
can you find or make the time to do this important practice, and B, what kind of benefits will you see when you're in the thick of it?
Yeah, well, you ask an important question. So let me get back to practicing meditation. You're practicing resting your attention on your anchor, and that puts your mind into neutral. So even if you're in the throes of something difficult, let's say you're sick, all right, but you're sick at home. Is your mind adding more meaning to that? Is your mind taking you to, what if I have to go to the hospital? Or let's say you're in the hospital. Are you still adding more meaning? What if I'm here for weeks? Or what if I don't make it? If you've lost your job, are you adding meaning to that? I may never find a job during this pandemic. So meditation enables you, no matter what difficult circumstance is happening, to look at it without piling meaning onto it. So does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And then that goes back to your comment that your mind will tell stories.
Yes, it does. So I have this acronym called STUFF, which stands for stories, thoughts, urges, frustrations, and feelings. And the stuff always spins in the mind. And stuff isn't always a bad thing. It can help us navigate our way through life.
Mm-hmm.
But stuff can cause stress when we're not mindful of our stuff. So bringing awareness to your stuff helps you be mindful and come into the here and now. So you can respond consciously rather than react unconsciously. And I just want to say one more thing, too, about what you said. What if you're in the throes of something difficult? One of the most meaningful things I heard was a lecture Elie Wiesel gave at the 92nd Street Y in New York. And he was a Holocaust survivor. And somebody said to him, what do you do with all that pain you feel? And he said, the pain lives in me, but I don't live in the pain. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to look at life's difficult circumstances, to look at the whole field of awareness that you have and not live stuck in the difficulty. Have it be part of your experience, but not all of your experience.
Got it. Got it. That is
Yeah.
an amazing perspective. And I love your stuff. I typed it in for those in Zoom at the moment.
Great.
Stories, thoughts, urges, frustrations, and feelings. It reminds me of those books, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
Yes.
This is the same kind of thinking process, is that we place so much weight on the problems that we perceive. And you keep using the word judgment. And I think that is a very apt word for the way we judge ourselves constantly.
Yes.
And judge our thoughts and judge our judgments and then judge others and judge the situation. That becomes a trap. That becomes almost a vicious cycle or a vortex.
Yes.
That it seems to me, with a well-trained brain, mind, you can shed that and you can navigate around that. Or, as you say, bring your focus back. Always bring your focus back away from that.
Yes. Yes. It's a real training. And, I will say I've been meditating for more than 30 years and my judgments still come up all the time.
But you recognize it, right? That you see it now, where often without training, you don't see your judgment.
Yes.
Is that true?
I see it much more. I'm not going to say I see it 100% of the time.
Okay, right.
Because, hey, everyone has stuff. But upon reflection, I can see it often more clearly. But yes, and I think that's what meditation does. I started at the beginning saying that I had a lot of anxious thoughts when I was a kid. I still have anxious thoughts. I mean, that's not going to change. However, the difference is I can say, wait, I'm telling myself a story. This isn't going on right now. Or wait, I don't have to live immersed in the wave of this thought. There's a famous poster of an old yogi with long, flowing gray hair. And the caption underneath says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. So that's what meditation is. It's like a surfing technique. The waves are still going to come, but the meditation is a tool to help you surf the waves of life.
That is so interesting. It also reminds me of the saying, go with the flow. There is a flow that is there. And when we resist the flow, we're creating so much friction and so many obstacles.
Yes.
And going with the flow doesn't mean you have to accept something that's bad, but you also don't have to get trapped in it.
That's right. That's right. Because what has happened often is just totally beyond your control. But where you are at choice, where you do have freedom, is the way you respond to it. And that's the difference.
Okay. So you mentioned the word control. And I do think that wanting to have control over all things, or wanting to have control over that which you do not have control, another person and what they say and what they do, the environment around you, you don't have full control ever. But it seems like a lot of us just want to have control.
Oh, yes.
Which sets us up for a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration that then goes into anger. And yet, I say the word control, and then I think of meditation, but it's not control. you're not controlling your mind. Can you speak a little bit about sort of the difference between controlling your mind and the meditative process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, and I think that's what a lot of people find is why they get frustrated, because they can't control the mind. They can't stop their thoughts.
Mm.
And just as it's the nature of the heart to beat, it's the nature of the mind to churn out that stuff. So meditation isn't a practice of trying to control your stuff. It's a practice of noticing it. And then, as I teach it, which is meditation with a neutral focal point, one of the more common ways to meditate. So it's a matter of noticing when your stuff hooks your attention and coming back to your focal point. Noticing when you get hooked, coming back to your focal point. Now, somebody might say, oh, I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be meditating. So first they had a thought, and then they're judging the thought they had, right?
Right.
So it's a matter of accepting the wanderings of the mind and knowing that the mind is going to churn out stuff, and that's okay. So you're not trying to control your stuff. You're simply trying to very gently bring your attention back to your anchor whenever your mind wanders. One of the ways I learned it was bring your attention back to your anchor as gently as a drop of dew descending on a blade of grass. I just love that image, right?
Yeah.
Just very gentle. Because if you try to push your thoughts away, and you said this earlier, you're creating resistance. So it's just a matter of noticing, coming back gently to neutral, to your breath, if that's your anchor, to a stone. I see somebody said they're going to try a stone. I love meditating with stones, so that's awesome. You can use a word or a phrase as your anchor, something you repeat, like a mantra. It's also called. You can use, as I said, your feet as you walk as an anchor. You can really use anything neutral as an anchor. So again, you're not trying to control your stuff. You're just shifting your attention back again and again and again. And that sort of takes away the control aspect. You're not controlling your thoughts, but what you are doing is learning to direct your attention.
Okay. Could you hold up your book again? I just want to remind everyone, especially anyone who's tuning in, that we are going to give away a copy of Joy's book. We're also giving away, all right, thank you. I'm going to hold these up. This is a kit called Base Hemp, BACE Hemp. Ta-da! It is their discovery kit. And what I love about this kit is if you're brand new to CBD, you can receive this, and each packet is marked by day. So this is day 5, for example. Day 1, you'll end up with a single capsule. The thing with CBD is you want to start off low, and then you just build up to see what your tolerance level is and what level is effective for you. So they give you all these packets so you can go through the stages each day of building up to what would be a good dose for you, whether it be for therapeutic uses or for something else. So BACE, B-A-C-E, we're going to give away a discovery kit as well. So one lucky winner will receive the book, and one lucky winner will receive BACE. So that was a little bit of an enticement to stick around. And also a plug for your book, because as I mentioned to you before we began, I just love supporting fellow authors.
Thank you.
So I think it's time now to maybe move into an actual demonstration of what this is like, what a guided meditation is like, what an entry-level meditation practice is like. And let's do it for about 5 minutes. It's so interesting too, because when you're in the middle of it, sometimes you're like, oh, what time is it? How long has it been? Like we're all so based around time. We're all so obsessive about checking the phone or checking the watch. Now I have a new Fitbit, and it tells the time, and I'm looking at it a little bit too often. We're too tied to time for so many reasons. So I will let you manage the time. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So as an instructor, I figured that you have your techniques for being able to keep it within a certain time frame. But
Yes.
but but just take us through as if we are all new and all beginners to your kind of practice.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is a 5-minute meditation, first starting with some body awareness to release physical tension, and then I'll move on to awareness of the breath.
Mm.
So, and I will keep track of the time.
Okay, and I will follow along.
Okay, great. So let's start by taking a comfortable seat with your head and your neck aligned with your spinal column. And without changing the position of your head or your neck, gently lower your eyelids to a soft gaze or a full close. And that's to reduce visual stimulation. And just for a moment, notice that you're breathing, noticing the coolness of the air as you breathe in and its warmth as you breathe out. And now, excuse me, checking in with your body to reduce or release any tension. First of all, notice where you make contact with the seat beneath you and with the floor beneath you if your feet are touching the ground. And just allow the seat to support you, the floor beneath you to support you, and your spine to support you. And try to release any muscles that are not being used to support you right now. One way to release tension is to imagine breathing in to any tense area and then breathing the tension out as you exhale. Another way to release tension is to imagine any tense areas getting warmer and warmer until they simply melt away. Now, bringing your attention to your eyes and the area in between your eyes. See if you can release any tension there. You might even want to imagine that area getting wider and wider. Bringing attention to your cheeks and your jaw. Just let your jaw be slack. There's nothing to hold on to. Bringing your attention to your shoulders and your neck, releasing tension here. If it's comfortable for you, you can shrug your shoulders up to your ears and then just let them drop. Releasing tension in your arms and your hands. There's nothing to hold on to right now. Allowing the whole lower portion of your body to be heavy. Again, noticing where you connect with the seat. And releasing any muscles not being used to support you right now. body relaxed, mind alert. Now, bring your attention to your breath once again. Once again, noticing the coolness of the air as you inhale and its warmth as you exhale. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Just gently bring it back to your breath again and again and again. Noticing your chest rising and falling. You could even silently say to yourself, rising, falling, to help keep your attention on your breath. You, you may want to see if you can keep your full attention on just this next breath, just one breath. And then the next one. And then the one after that. And when you're ready, take a couple of deeper breaths and slowly bring your attention back to your surroundings. And taking your time, slowly open your eyes.
Wow. I liked that a lot. A couple of things. What's funny is when I do these demonstrations and I participate, I'm trying to do what I'm being told. Not that I'm trying to obey, I'm trying to follow along to feel the full effect while also saying in the back of my mind, oh, remember to say something about, remember to say something about that.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of that going on, but I didn't judge it.
Okay.
One of the things that went on for me was the idea of noticing. And the two things I noticed in myself is that part where you were saying, notice the place between your eyes and
Mm-hmm.
then to make it wider. That was
Mm-hmm.
incredibly sort of evocative and effective for me because I
Mm-hmm.
do hold some tension up here, as many of us do with that sort of scowling bit and
Yes.
also eye strain, the
Mm-hmm.
squinting. So
Mm-hmm.
that I felt a tremendous release. I thought that's a wonderful way. Make it wide. I love that.
Great.
And the other is the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably have some TMJ. I do a lot of clenching.
Mm-hmm.
And so that make it slack. Just when you said the word slack, I felt it just go bonk.
Yeah.
And that was a big release as well. So yeah, I found that just fascinating because it was such an immense feeling of
Mm-hmm.
release that I didn't realize would happen. And I tried to remain neutral about it. I observed it. And that was the thing, the noticing. That was a perfect word. Notice,
Yeah.
notice. And then the final thing that I really found quite effective was with the breathing. You did two really neat techniques. One was rising, falling,
Mm-hmm.
to allow yourself those two words really homed in on the breathing.
Yeah.
And then the last part, doing it moment by moment, piece by piece, the next breath.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that as well. It was so neat.
Great.
I said, treat us like we're all beginners. And truly, even those of us who have tried or are currently practicing meditation, we're still beginners. We're always
Yes.
beginners.
Yes.
So that was a very joyful thing, Joy.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad. And you did what I said, which is to notice.
Mm.
And what's interesting to me is you had this tension here, and I've got some lines here because that's where I hold tension too.
Sure.
And you had this tension here. And what's interesting, not just for you, but for anyone, just noticing the tension helps you release it.
Mm.
There's this saying, if you can name it, you can tame it. So
Oh,
just
yeah.
bringing your awareness here and here just enabled you to say, okay, I don't need that. I can let that go.
I want to remind everyone who's watching live on Zoom, we are paying attention to the chat box. So please, if you have questions, if you can post them in there. If you have some questions right now for Joy. Sorry for those folks on Facebook Live. This was a spontaneous moment, so I'm not looking at Facebook at this time, but maybe next time. I would love to talk a little bit and hear your perspective on meditating in the everyday.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned time as being a challenge in people's minds. They're saying, I don't have the time. But you could fit meditative moments into your just everyday. It doesn't have to be, all right, let's clear the room, let's set the tone and the lights and the ambiance, let's sit on a pillow. It could be integrated into your everyday life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. And I'm so glad you mentioned that because a lot of people either feel they don't have the time for this intentional practice or they don't like to do that.
Mm.
So you can bring these meditative moments or mindful moments into most anything you do. I went to a retreat once and they said, consider anytime your skin comes into contact with water, make that be mindful. Notice the
Oh,
temperature of the water or the sound of the water, or if you're washing your hands, the feeling of the soap. I like to walk in the morning. So that's another great mindful practice. Just
mhm.
noticing the trees, the tree trunks, not whether I like the tree or don't like the tree, because then I'm going to get into judgments,
Mm.
but just noticing how big the tree is or the color or the shape of the leaves. Or when you cook, noticing the aromas, noticing the sound of the knife as you're cutting.
Mm.
Even if you're stuck in traffic, noticing if you're holding tension in your body, if the tension starts coming in the jaw and here, if the thoughts start spinning, I don't like this experience, I don't want to be here. So really, mindful moments can be practiced anytime just by noticing
Mm.
this
Mm.
neutral awareness. And when you do that, you're training your mind, you're creating those new neural pathways.
I really like that. In another book that I wrote with Beth Cantor called The
Mhm.
Happy Healthy Nonprofit, we talked about mindfulness. And one of the examples that Beth contributed, and I think it came from someone else, and I apologize for not having the credit, but it is when you're making coffee or when your tea, the pot is on the stove and it's getting warm, or take those times to just grab a chair, sit down in front of your coffee maker,
Mhm.
plant your feet, rest your hands on your knees, and close your eyes and breathe.
Mhm.
Notice the sound of the coffee maker and the water dripping down. Notice your breath. Just breathe. And it might take no more than 2 or 3 minutes. And you're doing something very productive. Coffee's being made. But you turn it into a meditative practice.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I love the smell of coffee. So that sounds great to me. And I can almost
Oh.
hear the sound of the coffee as it's being prepared.
Mm.
When you can take any of your five senses and bring them into the present, through what you're seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, smelling, whatever, but just bring your senses into the present moment, that's when you're becoming mindful. And I almost look at it like you're interrupting your stuff. The stuff is often always spinning. So it's a matter of just interrupting it. Even if you pause and bring your attention to just one breath, just one.
Mm. Well, back to stuff. I just want to remind anyone who's coming in later. Stuff, an acronym that Joy has come up with. Stuff is stories, thoughts, urges, frustration, and feelings.
Yeah.
Stuff. That's your stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I promised that we would do a random drawing for two different things. One is a copy of your book, and one is the Discovery Kit by BACE. And I believe it's BACE Health, BACE Health.com, if you want to look into the products a little bit more. What's very interesting is they don't say the word CBD. They talk about it as hemp because they want to return it to the plant and they want to not isolate the CBD. It's much more full spectrum, whole plant. So let's start with BACE and then we'll go to your book. BACE Discovery Kit, which is a week's worth plus a few extra of the BACE hemp product supplement, is, and by the way, this is random drawing. I use a site called random.org to find out of our live attendees on Zoom who's going to win, and it is Tanya. Tanya, you know who you are. I think you said you were from Washington. Here's what you do. I'm going to type it in and I'm going to say it out loud. Email me at aliza@ellementa.com, and then I will email the company with your address. So email me your address, please. And the winner of your book, Joy, please hold up a copy of your book. Thank you so much. This is Joy's book. And that is Katie. Katie, you won her book. So again, email me with your address. I will send it to Joy. Yay, we have winners.
Excellent.
Yeah, I
Great.
enjoy doing that. And I'm grateful for you for offering the copy of your book. And then I'm grateful to BACE Collective for offering some of their product. So to wind down, it's really important that we know how to stay in touch with you, Joy, how to reach out to you, how to find your podcast. Can you let everyone know how to find you, please?
Yes, I sure will. My website is joyrains.com, JOYRAINS.com. My podcast is on there, and there's all sorts of subscribe buttons there. Or you can just look up Mindful 180. That's the podcast on your favorite podcast app, and you'll find it there.
Excellent. I love that.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.
So how many podcasts are you putting out? What can people expect in terms of your podcast? There's probably an archive as well they can access.
Yeah, I've got, I think I published the 26th or 27th episode, I can't remember, on Monday. And actually it was on time and letting go of time, which was exactly what you were talking about.
Oh, that'll be interesting to hear.
Yes. But my intent is to have a new episode every Monday evening around 5 p.m. East Coast time.
Every Monday evening. Okay. And Kay said that she learned new aspects and tips today.
Oh,
she wants to be as calm and collected as you, Joy.
Oh.
Yeah, I have to say that is really amazing to me. The nuances and the differences of various meditation practices. You did say there's many, many, many ways to meditate. There's no single one correct, this is the way it must be done. Right. And what I've discovered as I am doing these sessions with different meditation practitioners and instructors, that it is almost a different experience each time.
Yes.
In a good way, in a really good way. And it's true, those things that I was mentioning to you are tangible tips that transform that moment and really help bring you back. And so I appreciate that so much. Thank you for sharing your techniques and your thoughts on meditation.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
there anything you'd like to leave our viewers with some parting thoughts on meditation?
Well, I will say be patient with yourself,
Mm.
that everyone has stuff and it takes time to learn how to train that wild horse. And I'd like to invite people to consider pausing and noticing during their everyday activities,
Mm.
even if they don't want to have a formal meditation practice, but just consider pausing and noticing with your five senses and start with making that a daily practice.
Mm.
So that's what I'd really like to encourage people to do and to be patient.
I've learned something. This is an interesting technique. I learned about recently something called a sensory box.
Mhm.
And in those moments of extreme stress, tension, judgment, all of the things, busy mind, to have a box literally with five things that address each of the senses.
Mm.
So it could be super simple things like taste, have a little box of mints, touch, maybe one of those foamy balls or spongy balls or some sort of stress ball where you can hold it, touch it, feel its surface, or stone, like you had said,
Mhm.
or worry beads if you want to throw worry beads in there. Smell, it could be a little bit of perfume or essential oil, something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, it's interesting that you could literally put together a little stress meditation kit, if you will, that helps you touch on each of the senses. Just another thing to throw out there for all of you as we navigate these stressful times.
It's a lovely idea. It really is. And
Mm.
I would also encourage people to do what resonates with them. No
Mhm.
right or wrong. There's so many different ways to meditate. So just do what's authentic for you.
Mm. That's a good parting thought. Well, Joy, thank you so much for being there. I had put a call out to an authoress list, female authors, and said, hey, if you do anything at all to do with wellness, get in touch with me. I'd love to have you on as a guest. And you responded. Thank you.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for having me. And thanks for everyone who joined us today.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll have many more of these. We do them on every Wednesday and Sunday at 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Eastern Standard Time is one of those.
Mhm.
And I appreciate all of you. Thanks and take care. Bye now.